Welcome, Climate Viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at ClimateViewer.com, having another lovely Sunday. And last week we covered black carbon, graphene, metals, and other sky pollution from plane farts and commercial aviation. And everybody requested, now do military. So tonight we're going to flip the coin and we're going to go into carbon black. Not black carbon, we're talking about carbon black tonight and the history of cloud creation and military weather warfare. So we're going to get really deep into this. I'm going to be rapid firing a lot of this. And before we get into it, we're going to have a quick little news update of something fascinating caught on satellite. But if you're watching this anywhere else because somebody's downloaded this video, which I am perfectly fine with, come over to YouTube at ClimateViewer on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you want to join the live chat every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I'd greatly appreciate that. And if you can support the channel, I would love that even more. It's Christmas time. All donations currently going to my daughters and my wife. I am lucky enough to have been with my wife for going on 25 years. And she supported me through the last 15 years of my research and, 80,000 plus reference links on ClimateViewer.com, the maps, the timelines, the trips, everything. So your support's always appreciated. Let's get to it. So this happened. You just can't make this one up. Russian GPS jamming actually caught on radar via satellite. So we're actually talking about synthetic aperture radar. We won't get into the specifics of that, but basically it allows you to see 3D objects, mostly 2D, but can be 3D, using radars from space. This was actually the Sentinel satellite that trigger warning. I'm talking about satellites right now. Just, focus on this. If you don't believe satellites are real or you think they're on balloons, just mentally picture, I'm not here. There's just a flat map, and go to your happy place. Be right back. But over in the Black Sea, this is obviously the Ukraine conflict. This was caught on the Sentinel radar. GPS and radar interference over Sevastopol, Crimea, and this was in November. So it just happened. And all of these ships thought their, GPS was going haywire, and they didn't know why till they saw this interference, which was visible on the Sentinel-1 SAR imagery, and that's synthetic aperture radar. Now, I was trying to dig into what it could actually be like. What's the source? So let me see if I can actually get out of this. Like, get me out of the damn picture. All right. All right, there we go. Thank God. So this is on Naval News. All links in the details right now, so you can check that out. But electromagnetic warfare is a powerful weapon in the war in Ukraine. Yet it is elusive. We know it's happening, but it is invisible, even mysterious. A new analysis of open source data gives a rare window into this world, unmasking Russia's hidden hand. Now, one of the things you might not know is that they're actually, the Ukrainians have been provided with EMP weapons. So they have electromagnetic weapons to fry some drones and things like that. Literally like handheld, pulse cannons to blast UAVs out of the sky. So there's a lot of electromagnetic warfare going on over there. Some interesting photos from this. They got this right here. This is the original photo taken by the satellite, and you see it's directly over Sevastopol there. So I was looking into it real quick, and I wanted to try to figure out what that possibly could be. So what better place to go than ClimateViewer.org? And so I fired up my ClimateViewer 3D, and I turned on Fortress Russia. So this is Fortress Russia, air defense radars and surface-to-air missile sites, and all missile defense radars, because they seem like the likely candidate for something like this. And if we come down to the area here, you can see that it's quite a populated place. For those wanting a reference point, this is Ukraine right here. This is the Black Sea, and this is where Sevastopol is right here in the center of the screen. So the area in particular where it was spotted was right here. And we can see that, it lines up perfectly. This is the area. And wouldn't you know it, there is a radar there. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to take all of these down. But before I do, I'm going to show you guys one real cool one. Is that some Star Wars looking stuff or what? I mean, really, the Don 2N radar is just a beast fortress of a radar, located right outside of Moscow. It may be a Cold War dinosaur, but damn if that ain't a big dinosaur. So yeah, I've always been fascinated by these types of radars, but let me real quick. I'm just going to turn off all of the air defense radars. And now all we can see is large missile defense radars. And I'm going to come back over here. So originally I was thinking, and they even hint at it in this article, that, why is it not translating? Translate, detect language, bam. Down here at the bottom, they were saying that it's probably a Voronezh radar. So the Voronezh looks like this. It's basically, like a heart stood up on its side. Okay, it's a phased array radar, really powerful. Anyway, so there is a Voronezh right here, and this is a Voronezh DM, but it's pretty far off, but still far off really doesn't matter to radars of this power and, length. Let's put it that way. They got a hell of a range. Bringing that back up, you'll see what I mean. For example, the one on the corner right here at Sevastopol, its range is literally this line right here. It covers all of Africa out to the Arabian Sea. Just that one radar. So quite a range on these things. Very, very big radar. So going back in here real quick, what we see is that in this location right here, this is actually, what's visible is a Dnieper, or a Dniester, I believe. Yes, a Dnieper. But it said it was closed in 2009 and planned to be modernized in 2016. And the modernization of that would be replacing it with a Voronezh radar. So more than likely, there is a Voronezh radar at this location operating. And that is the likely source of the GPS radar jamming going on that was caught on the Sentinel satellite. Fascinating stuff indeed. I'm just saying. So breaking news, electromagnetic warfare over in Ukraine, specifically Crimea, at Sevastopol, caught on radar, by a satellite. Trigger warning over. Moving along, let's get into this thing. So I don't know how much, most people don't know much about, weather warfare. And obviously the first really known case of weather warfare is Operation Popeye. What most people don't know about Operation Popeye is how it happened and, how secretive it was, how it was renamed multiple times. So it could be called Operation Motorpool or Operation Intermediary or Compatriot. But long story short, sponsored by Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who just passed away, if you didn't get the memo, and the CIA without the authorization of then Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird, who said in congressional testimony, quote, "We have never engaged in any type of activity, weather modification over northern Vietnam." So they didn't want to talk about this. Even when they were busted and Congress, had hearings about it, they still wouldn't admit to it. The goal of weather warfare in Vietnam was softening roads, causing landslides along roadways, washing out river crossings, maintain saturated soil conditions beyond normal time span. As the nickname went, make mud, not war. The goal was to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail so that it was impassable, and that way, hopefully, the Viet Cong couldn't traffic their weapons as easily. During Operation Popeye, they were there's an actual Operation Motorpool patch. So, like I said, not just known as Popeye, it had a couple different names. But right there, that's the 14th Weather Reconnaissance Squadron that were involved in this. It really came down to reporter Jack Anderson saw a note on Lyndon Johnson's desk, and as a result of that, he got with Senator Claiborne Pell, who then had hearings in Congress about this. And there were 3 hearings that I know of, and one of those hearings is still classified to this day. All the hearings are available right here on the Weather Modification History Timeline. So if you want to read the actual testimony from Congress, you can do that here. But they were using WC-130s, which is basically a weather reconnaissance C-130. And right there on the side, this little location right here, you see a JATO flare rack, which normally would be for like jet-assisted takeoff, like rockets, basically. But this is actually a cloud seeding flare rack. And there's another close-up of it. So cloud seeding flares were loaded into these WC-130s. Also, RF-4 Phantoms were used. And here's the actual planes that did the weather warfare together. And what would you say? Who? Jack Anderson? Jack Anderson! The man, the myth, the legend, Jack Anderson. If you guys don't know about Jack Anderson, you just don't know. The guy had balls of steel. Pentagon Papers, putting Nixon on blast, going up against the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA. They tried to kill him. Now that's a damn reporter. A damn good reporter. Jack Anderson. The man, the myth, the legend. And this is the paper that he actually published, in the Pentagon Papers, where they talk about the weather warfare that happened, which then made the newspapers everywhere. Weather war outcry, the weather as a weapon of war, cloud seeding over Vietnam. And this is the original author, Seymour Hersh, who broke the story. U.S. turns rain into war weapon. Seymour Hersh, the guy who wrote the paper, the original newspaper article that was published worldwide about the weather warfare in Vietnam, was also the same Seymour Hersh that wrote the paper about the United States bombing the Nord Stream pipeline. Now that you probably didn't know. We're all just learning new fun things together. It's so fun to learn together. I'm just loving this. CIA rainmaking over Laos has only indifferent results. 1972 newspapers. Acts of God and Congress. Yeah. Wouldn't you have us drop rain on the enemy rather than bombs? You can't make this stuff up. I mean, reading the newspapers is insane. When you start to read them, it's really eye-opening because we don't have... we have far too much fake news today. Clearly, there was a lot more journalists out there and people willing to publish things like this, because this is literally the government's dirty secret. Along with, the CIA declined to comment on the reports that they were, rainmaking over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Senator seeks NATO ban on weather wars. Oh, so what is that about? So you mean As a result of Operation Popeye, there was a weather war ban. Yes, there was, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Weather modification used for warfare. Senator Hence Pell says the conclusion is reached from Defense Department answers. All this well documented, newspaper articles, journal entries, stuff you can't get anywhere. U.S. urges ban on weather manipulative warfare. Okay, so we can see that they did do weather warfare. They were caught. They had to testify in front of Congress. And as a result, the U.S. and Soviets proposed ban on weather warfare. I think we've made our point here. And you can see those hearings right here. U.S. Congress Senate Committee on Foreign Relations Subcommittee on Oceans and International Environment hearing prohibiting military weather modification. Washington, D.C. Government Printing Office, 26th through 27th July 1972, 162 pages. This one's only 7 pages. Interesting. And then another 123 pages worth of stuff there, and 39 more pages and 51 more pages. All this, the related hearings section, let's just put it that way. And underneath, if you just can't get enough of this and you really want to, break the bank, I suggest you dig into the references where all of this stuff comes from. And the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Anderson. Tell your friends about him. Pretty cool guy. But in the interim, what got no attention was that the CIA once again was doing another weather warfare project at the same time. So as we can see right here, that we're talking March 1967 through July 1972. In the middle of that, the CIA was also trying to kill Castro's sugar crops. Farmer David. I'm going to take a moment out just to literally clown on Farmer David, because I got to at this point. Bruh, you need to take a chill pill. Farmer David. Jim Lee, coal fly ash plus Dr. Herndon. He hides it, my friends. A deceiver. I'm hiding it. Like right now, I'm actively hiding the fact that I don't talk about coal fly ash. Tangent moment. All right, Farmer David. Get this, bro. I just did a video last Sunday on black carbon. I talked to Dr. Herndon, called me because he had written his paper. He had got shunned by the peer-reviewed journals, got his ass kicked out of there, and they stripped his paper and unpublished it and all that. Why? Because it's based on junk science. And when he called me, I said, look, dude, you're really splitting hairs. You're saying coal fly ash. If you just said black carbon, or if you talked about carbon black dust, you would be right. But you don't want to do that. And then I gave him all the same references that are in the video yesterday, and the video, the references from the video that I'm doing right the F now. So the point is, Farmer David, that if Herndon had listened, he would have been able to write a paper that would get peer-reviewed. People would check his sources and find out he was 100% right. But he didn't. Instead, he wrote it about coal fly ash. And do you know why that's important, Farmer David? I know you don't, because otherwise you wouldn't be saying these silly things in my chat right now. So I'm going to show you. Why does it matter? What is this coal fly ash thing he's even talking about? We're going to do a little experiment together real quick. Let me go over here to YouTube, and I'm going to type in the HARP report. I know that this is not a search engine anymore, so cross your fingers. Wow. Apparently, I'm more censored than a guy who did a video 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, a guy by the name of the HARP report put chemtrails are coal ash. Now, you can disagree with me or you can agree with me. I don't really give a damn. But This dude is the originator of the conspiracy that coal fly ash is put into jet planes and sprayed everywhere. It does not make any damn sense whatsoever. Period. Not as a performance enhancer, not as a poison. I mean, the planes are already spitting out, black carbon coated in graphene filled with metals. You got all the poison you possibly could want coming out of planes. So why, come up with this coal ash thing? And I think it comes down to going back to my map. If you just go down here to energy and pollution, you can actually scroll down till you see coal ash, and you can see all of the coal ash ponds. And when you do that, you can see where all the coal fly ash actually came from. And I have that on my map. So coal fly ash, I talk about it. The difference is I'm not stupid enough to write a scientific paper saying that it's magically being peppered out of every single plane when that is completely unprovable. And furthermore, it's just silly. It's just silly. So yeah, there's over 160,000 tons annually just at the Greene County plant in Alabama. So if you scroll down here and you just zoom out, you can see the coal ash ponds. Looks like they've actually cleaned this one up since the last time I was here. Where it at? Used to be a big pond out here, but looks like they actually cleaned that side up. That's good to know. But most of these, I know there were a lot along the Mississippi, which is really nasty. Let's see. There's your coal fly ash. It's still locked on. It's still locked on, Jim. You're screwing your video up. That's a coal fly ash pond, as you can see there. Big black coal ash. So yeah, I've done my research on coal ash. It's not a thing in planes, at least in my opinion. I don't know. But Farmer Dave, get some help, dude. I mean, seriously. Like, you're like a broken record. You come around every video, you come around every post on the socials. Just get over it, dude. I'm not going to read Herndon's paper on here and bore the hell out of these people. Moving along. So back to CIA Project Nile Blue, where basically while the weather warfare was going on in Operation Popeye in Vietnam, the CIA was doing, quote, but the seeding near Cuba was to cause less rain, not more. It was supposed to squeeze rain out of the clouds before they reached the island. You might say we tried to embargo rain clouds. Who said that? This guy said that. So this is from jfk.hood.edu. Another CIA plot, Cuba crops. The Harold Weisberg Archive, Beneficial Hodgson Library, Hood College, San Francisco Examiner, 1976. Published in the San Francisco Examiner, 1976. Yeah, we got pictures of that right here. CIA are the weathermen. Another CIA plot, Cuba crops. This is the San Francisco Examiner, and right there is the quote that I just read you. But the seeding near Cuba was to cause less rain, not more. So this is an idea of what's called overseeding, or, creating drought conditions. This is going to come up repeatedly. In addition, as a little bit of lulls, a Canadian dude actually owned the patent to the technology that the CIA was using in Vietnam and in Operation Nile Blue, or Project Nile Blue. So he sued them. Bernard A. Power, a professional meteorologist, sued the United States 4 years ago, and the trial began September 22nd, the U.S. Court of Claims, because they did patent infringement when they were doing their weather warfare. Kind of funny. CIA tampered with Cuba's weather. November 1976. So that's two cases back in the 1970s where the CIA was involved in doing weather warfare Only one of them really became public, and that led to the Environmental Modification Convention, or ENMOD, and that was the United Nations signed weather warfare ban. The interesting part about the ENMOD ban, the weather warfare ban, is that it didn't really ban everything. It just banned hostile environmental modification techniques. Quote, each state party to this convention undertakes to engage in not to engage in military or any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques, and this is the important part, having widespread or long-lasting or severe effects as a means of destruction, damage, or injury to any other state. So, weather warfare that kills people or has long-lasting severe effects as a means of destruction, damage, or injury to other people, other state parties. So there's your semantics, okay? Any technique, by environmental modification techniques, we mean any technique for changing through the deliberate manipulation of the natural processes, the dynamics, composition, or structure of the Earth, including its biota, lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere, or of outer space. Damn, everything. But at the same time, this convention shall not hinder the use of environmental modification techniques for peaceful purposes. So it doesn't ban weather modification, it just bans weather warfare. And that's kind of the problem with ENMOD, is that they banned weather warfare, but they really never came up with a way for anybody to actually catch somebody doing weather warfare, which is why I've proposed my solution to update the Environmental Modification Convention to the Environmental Modification Accountability Act. You can read about that at climateviewer.com/ENMOD. In addition to the United Nations version of this, I'm working on a national version that could be just passed in your country, and even a state version, so that state by state you can go around and try to get your representatives to pass this, because the UN sucks at everything they do. I mean, let's just be real. They just suck at what they do. So there's that. But here are some of the secret memos. Senior review group meeting for Secretary Henry Kissinger. I have links to all of these. You can download these. You can read them. They're informative. Let's just put it that way. And the list goes on. So not everybody actually signed the weather warfare ban, because generally speaking, most of these countries in red, like Mexico and much of South of Africa, France didn't sign it, interestingly enough. But yeah, all of these red ones, they did not sign or agree to the weather warfare ban. Green ones are parties who did sign it, and then there are yellow countries, like pretty much the stands. Let's just put it that way. Looks like Turkey and Iran and the stands. They didn't sign. They just only signed the sheet of paper, but weren't a party to the weather warfare ban. Splitting hairs, I guess we could say. Too many trying to do something about the weather. Yes, there were many, newspaper articles about this, but I kind of kept it short on that because most of that I've already covered in the other one. Anyway, did this stop weather war? No, because just as recently as 2018, Iran accuses Israel of cloud theft. I jacked your clouds? Like, really? I know that's, you're probably thinking that. You're like, how does one steal someone's clouds? Well, let's get into it. Joint teams from Israel and one other neighboring countries make the clouds entering into Iran barren. Moreover, we are faced with the cases of cloud theft and snow theft. Now, this was stated by Brigadier General Gholam Reza Jalali, head of Iran's Civil Defense Organization. And by neighboring countries, he's probably referring to all of the European countries that do cloud seeding. So before the clouds can make their way into, let's just do a little bit of this. So right here is Europe. And as the weather is moving this way towards Iran, if all of these guys here are cloud seeding, then there's a good possibility that all of the rain falls here, and by the time the clouds get here, there's no rain falling. The same was true with Cuba. When the CIA were making it rain out here in the Gulf of Mexico, well, I mean, technically the air would be probably going this way, right? So out here in the ocean, they were making the rain fall before it got to the island of Cuba. That's basically how you create a drought. That's how you create drought-like conditions. So basically, Iran is accusing the European Union and specifically naming Israel as stealing their rain and their clouds. And I do recall a time, many years ago, where I think it hit like 150 degrees plus, something like that, 150 something degrees in Iran. I mean, this is not like a new thing. I mean, right here we have former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in 2011 accused Western countries of devising plans to cause drought in Iran, adding that European countries use special equipment to force clouds to dump their water on their continent. Okay? So this is not new. It's been going on a very long time. And by the way, that's the brigadier general who said the thing about the Israel, stealing their clouds. But like I said, back in 2011, Ahmadinejad, he actually said it in 2010 and 2011. And then come 2018, they're still saying it, that, all these other white nations are stealing our damn rain. I'm inclined to agree with him. It's more than likely true. Now, we're going to talk about clouds for a moment, because this is really the topic that everybody, wants to know about. Tell me about them chemtrails, and tell me how the military is involved. And this is pretty straightforward. So if you go to climateviewer.com/cirrus clouds matter, I've already laid all this out for you in 2 PowerPoint presentations. One where I really am getting technical, and one called Chemtrails for Dummies, where you can just read about plane farts and geoengineering and the difference between military and commercial cloud creation. Let's just put it like that. And in the previous video, I covered this, what metals are in jet exhaust. All these red ones, that's the metals. And where they end up, 18 kilometers in the stratosphere, 10,000 per cubic centimeter. But under here, you can actually see, the cirrus cloud fact, frequently asked questions. And you can see what makes a cirrus cloud. This is straight from, the military. Solid and volatile emissions, particulate emissions from Fischer-Tropsch, HEFA, and JP8 and blends. And they, talk about sulfate aerosols create nucleation mode and coat soot particles. Like soot particles are coated in graphene and sulfuric acid. Fuel sulfur responsible for rapid volatile particulate matter formation in plume. This is not what we're talking about today. This is just jet pollution. Today, we're going to focus on the military side of things. So in my PowerPoint presentation, I broke this down pretty good. And I'll bring it up to full screen real quick. And basically, I talk about the difference between carbon black and black carbon, or soot. If you don't know the difference, you really got to get this one down, because otherwise, you won't get the rest of this. So let's go here. Carbon black, military use, increase cirrus cloud cover, decrease precipitation, make it rain, make it drought. We just talked about that. Cuba versus Vietnam. Make it flood in Vietnam, make it dry in Cuba, make it dry in Iran. Scientific weather modification, hurricane modification, decrease precipitation, increase cirrus cloud cover, dissipate fog, versus, commercial aviation, doing all those things over there. So let me go here. And we're, talking about how did this get started? And all of this is in here. What Lyndon Johnson said about, being able to determine the world's cloud layer. He, from space, the masters of infinity would have the power to control Earth's weather, to cause drought and flood, to change the tides and raise the levels of the sea, to divert the Gulf Stream and change temperate climates to frigid. Now, this is in spite of the fact that literally ENMOD bans weather modification from the bottom of the ocean to outer space. They don't care. They're going to roll on with it. So I have all of this stuff that most of what I'm about to show you is already in this PowerPoint presentation. So you should just download the PowerPoint presentation and save yourself a whole lot of trouble. That's all I'm saying. Just download the PowerPoint presentation. It's very beneficial. And that's on that page. So we talked about this in the last video. I'm just going to do a quick refresher for those who missed the last video. Carbon black versus black carbon. What's the difference? Well, despite similar names, carbon black should not be confused with black carbon. Carbon black is distinguished by a high elemental carbon content as well as and well-controlled properties. Black carbon particles are characterized by their heterogeneous properties. What this means is that carbon black is an aciniform. It is basically a grape-like structure of just almost pure elemental carbon and is manufactured. It is man-made. Black carbon is soot. And soot coming from planes is almost completely spherical. So it looks like a basketball. And the basketball is covered in graphene. Inside is black carbon or soot. It's still carbon, but it's round. And inside that soot are all of the metals. What metals? No, we're not talking about Pantera. We're talking about these metals. Not the metal, these metals. So you have to understand this difference, that carbon black, man-made, manufactured, black carbon, burnt from jet fuel, dirty plane farts. Both make clouds. We're going to get to that right now. So in 1958, Dr. Florence Van Straten created clouds using carbon black dust. So this was the earliest reference that we have to this. And as you may notice, is the cover photo for this video we're watching right now. So Dr. Florence Van Straten said, I'll just read you a little bit of this. A woman scientist who discovered a new method said experiments over southern Georgia produced a series of clouds at a cost of 18 cents per cloud. We dropped carbon black suspended in a liquid over a track a mile long and produced a solid line of clouds 1 mile long, Dr. Van Straten told a reporter. When we dropped 1.5 pound dry packages of carbon black, we produced single clouds with each drop. The Navy team seeded 7 clouds with carbon and dissipated each of them from 2.5 to 20 minutes. Each cloud turned gray and then rapidly disappeared. Aside from the cost of the airplanes, we spent less than $5 on the experiments in Georgia. And even in 1958, $5 for a government experiment to make clouds, that's nothing. I mean, it's nothing now. You know, like I could spot you 5. But that's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive stuff. Carbon black controls clouds. Okay, research paper on this, along with actual photos of the clouds that they made. Pretty impressive. Navy creation destroys clouds. Ordinary carbon black is used. September 23rd, 1958, Florence Times. The Sunday American, Panama, November 30th. Lady meteorologist toys with clouds to seek tranquilizer for bad storms. So that was the originator of this. And in fact, coming over here, I was looking this up just to get a citation on this, and you can see on Google Scholar, preliminary experiments using carbon black for modification and formation, Florence Van Straten, 1958, Naval Research Laboratory. There is no copy public of her actual report. There, you can cite it. Okay, so they've got citations for it, but I was trying to find the original, you know, like the actual publication, but apparently it's classified, not public. Give up. But yeah, we have the newspaper articles to prove it. It did happen. It's a thing. And there is a Google Scholar citation for it. So that's that. Now, why does this carbon black matter? Because it's been used so many times throughout history as a means of weather control. Steering hurricanes with carbon black dust. It may be also possible to use carbon dust to enhance precipitation over interior land areas, alter extratropical cyclones, inhibit daytime summer temperatures and severe weather, prevent frosts, and speed up springtime snowmelt in agriculturally marginal regions. And this is from William Gray et al. 1976, weather modification by carbon dust absorption of solar energy. Now, in that paper, what he said was, you know what, I might need to make this picture a little bit bigger for everybody to see, because I went and I took some of the pictures in it to, really highlight what's going on here. And you can see right here that they have the carbon black and the artificial cloud that they make outside of the hurricane, and then it's sucked into the inner eye wall and then shot out. And to do this, they said idealized portrayal of our typical hurricane, radial circulation, how carbon black dust seeding of the boundary layer just beyond the cirrus shield might lead to enhanced cumulus convection and reduction of low-level inflow, which penetrates the eye wall cloud. Illustration of how carbon dust would be generated and dispersed from jet aircrafts right here. And thermodynamics of proposed engine modifications. So they literally say we would modify the jet engines of planes to create carbon black dust to steer hurricanes. And they have it right here: compressor, burner, turbine, afterburner. And then there's this special box right here, carbon make section. And that's how they, proposed it. At least William Gray did in 1976 in this paper. Moving along, you think that was just a one-off? You think that this is just hooey? Well, apparently they didn't think it was too much hooey, because in 2008, the Department of Homeland Security had a hurricane modification workshop. And at that hurricane modification workshop, guess what came back up? William Gray's idea of steering hurricanes with carbon dust. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't make it up. So what did the Department of Homeland Security say they would do? limited scale field test, salt seeding test like silver iodide, because it's a silver salt, and then carbon black aerosol, carbon black dust. It's sometimes referred to as CBA or CBD, but dust is an aerosol. We're really splitting hairs on dust versus aerosol. Carbon black dust, carbon black aerosol. So there you have it. This is the Department of Homeland Security talking about carbon black dust to steer hurricanes. In addition, upper ocean cooling, ion generators, just general seeding, and then what they call monolayer films, which is like basically creating artificial oil slicks, so that they can cut off, they call it hurricane emasculation. Photos from that. And this is the actual cover of their report from the Hurricane Modification Workshop in Boulder, Colorado, in February 2008. And these are the scientists and geoengineers that went there, like Steven Salter and John Latham, who did the marine cloud brightening boats, originally called the Silver Lining Project, now known as silverlining.ngo, and the Marine Cloud Brightening Project. But wouldn't you know it, here we go. How to halt a hurricane. And this infographic basically goes right back to what William Gray said. Fleet of transport aircraft flying 50,000 feet drops soot in the path of the targeted areas of the hurricane. Now, this is where I keep saying, you got journalists and even scientists who keep conflating carbon black with black carbon. Soot is technically black carbon, okay? And carbon black is manufactured. But yet in this, you just read it from the Homeland Security report. They wanted carbon black aerosol, not soot. But I guess this was for a newspaper rag, so they wanted to make it simpler for people to understand. So they said, drop soot in the path of a targeted area of a hurricane. And it shows over here, soot cloud. Soot is warmed by the sun, heating the cool air around it at the very top of the hurricane. This reduces the flow of air within the hurricane and slows it down. And depending on where and when the soot is dropped, I'm in front of the picture, the now weakened hurricane will change its course. So the idea that black heats up, like the black hood of your car, that's what they're going for with carbon black dust. They want to be able to, change the heat balance in a hurricane to steer it, to weaken it, to throw it off its course. I have a secondary source for this, and this is not on the weather modification timeline. This is just on ClimateViewer.com, and you can see that here. Hurricane hacking, the Department of Homeland Security enters the weather modification business. This is a much more thorough one. I published this all the way back in 2013. So this has been on my website for a very long time. And we're going to skip over all of this timeline stuff I have at the beginning about what led up to this and who all was involved and what it has to do with Bill Gates and Ken Caldera. Although it's pretty funny in reality that, Bill Gates was involved in this. But, not surprising at all, right? So we're going to go down here, and I'm just, I'm going to just skip through it. I'm going to type in carbon. What am I typing? Carbon black. Don't you beep at me like that, rude computer. Collaborative research on hurricane modification by carbon black dispersion methods, risk, and that's what we're looking for. And that's by Dr. Mosh Alamaro from MIT University. He was at this hurricane modification workshop, and he is the one who said this. So what did he say? Carbon black aerosol seeding. Focus. This presentation focused on the use of carbon black aerosol to selectively heat parts of the atmosphere by dispersion of CBA above a hurricane. Exactly what you're seeing here. Not soot, carbon black. Get it right, people. This scenario is motivated by the fact that the energy cycle of a hurricane may be presented as a Carnot heat engine, and reducing the contrast between the hot and cold reservoirs should reduce the power of a hurricane, and the carbon black aerosol will absorb incident solar radiation to warm the cold reservoir. So this entire, proposal was about using carbon black aerosol to steer hurricanes. And that's not all. I mean, there's many other references to this throughout this workshop. Carbon black or film layers probably will not work in strong wind and large wave conditions. This is some of the arguments against it. What is the response of the hurricane to the distribution of carbon black aerosols in the hurricane circulation? We really don't know. Maybe this is a bad idea to just go dumping a bunch of carbon black into hurricanes. But in the end, we should probably do it anyway. Seeding considerations: distribute cloud condensation nuclei aerosols on the periphery of hurricane using aircrafts and ships. That's what William Gray said. When distributing carbon black, releasing it above the core of a hurricane, accomplishing the seeding will take further study. But a lot of mentions of modification of carbon black dispersion and all of that. So carbon black dust, it's a whole ass thing. And this is very similar, what the CIA did to Cuba is what Russia did to Chernobyl. Does that make sense? So when the nuclear meltdown happened in Russia, happened in Ukraine at the Chernobyl nuclear site, they didn't want that rainfall to land in Russia. So, as it's put here, in the sleepy town of southern Belarus, villagers looked up to see planes with a strange yellow and gray contrails snaking across the sky. Next day, 27 April, powerful winds kicked up, cumulus clouds billowed on the horizon, and rain poured down in a deluge. The raindrops scavenged radioactive dust floating 200 meters in the air and sent it to the ground. The pilots trailed the slow-moving gaseous bulk of nuclear waste northeast of Gomel into Mogilev province, wherever pilots shot silver iodide, rain fell, along with a toxic brew of a dozen radioactive elements. If Operation Cyclone had not been top secret, the headlines would have been spectacular. Quote, scientists using advanced technology save Russian cities from technological disaster. Yet, as the old saying goes, what goes up must come down. No one told the Belarusians that the southern half of the republic had been sacrificed to protect Russian cities. In the path of the artificially induced rain lived several 100,000 Belarusians, ignorant of the contaminants around them. So as we can see here, it's a whole ass thing. It's definitely not a half-ass thing. I got a lot of references for this, but basically you could look at the Chernobyl. Anybody can go. You can go to Wikipedia for this, for that matter. You can go to ClimateViewer 3D. I prefer ClimateViewer 3D. I'm just saying, that's just me personally. But you can go here and you can look up the Chernobyl radioactive fallout, and you can see, basically what happened with that. And on here, we can see that right about here is where their Chernobyl is, okay? So it's near Kiev. And this is the first radioactive fallout zone, okay? And I got, all that information's here as well, how we made the Chernobyl rain. This is the map that was used to create this 3D projection that you're looking at now. Then we've got Belarus right here. And then what do we have right up here? We have Moscow. Okay. I don't know why it took so long for Moscow to pop up on there. So as we're looking at it, this is what would have happened. The radioactive fallout was going from here. It was headed towards Moscow. and they didn't want that fallout to make it to Moscow. So they literally cloud seeded all through here, Operation Cyclone, as they called it, to make all of that fallout land in Belarus. Same idea. This is how you create drought. You make it rain somewhere else so that it doesn't end up in Moscow. I'm guessing, the Iranian general is probably looking at this going, son of a bitch, it is true. But regardless, that's where we're at. So I have a picture of it right here where I kind of just, put it all together. Chernobyl meltdown here, cloud seeding washout here, Moscow, yay, hooray. I mean, trust the propaganda, Mr. Stonely, says Farmer David, still angry with just panties in the wad into chats. Bruh, don't pick on Stonely now. Mr. Stonely, that's my brother from another mother. You're going to get kicked right up out of here. Good Lord. Chat be getting lit sometimes. That's all I'm saying. Chat be getting lit. So yeah, this is another example of that. So now we're down to the very end of all this. Where's the proof, Jim? Is it still going on? What's the deal? How about some Freedom of Information Act requests? Anybody wants a Freedom of Information Act? It's freedom of the thing, the thing. Freedom of the thing requests. This is Spacecast 2020. And in this, they actually have this paper where they talk about infrared defeating clouds. And if you wanted me to, I could bring it up real quick. And I actually have it right here, locally mirrored on ClimateViewer.com, so you don't have to get it anywhere else. I got it from the Black Vault. Shout out to them for having a copy of this. But you scroll down here and you see these have been removed. Defensive counter space, removed force applications. They don't want that even in the paper, the FOIA that was removed. Much of this paper is blocked. This page is blank. And you get down here and you keep going. Blank page. We don't want most people to know about this. Secret. This is top secret stuff. Previous USSR weather modification efforts. And you see, this demonstrated an ability to generate infrared defeating clouds, effectively denying overhead surveillance. Blocked out. They don't even want you to see it. And then they go on to talk about ENMOD. So even in, the top secret document that was then released as a part of a Freedom of Information Act request, the photos of the technology are completely removed under previous Russian weather modification efforts. And only one sentence is even left. But it's basically that, the Russians have the ability to generate infrared defeating clouds, effectively denying overhead surveillance. This will matter in just a moment, because guess what? The United States Air Force said the exact same thing. So Freedom of Information Act request from the United States Air Force Geophysics Directorate, and they said weather modification using carbon black. Now this one actually comes from the sunshineproject.org, which was deleted from the internet. This is available on the Wayback Machine as well. And I got that up right here, and you can actually see the original document. U.S. Air Force Phillips Labs capabilities sought and uses to which they would do it: increase precipitation, decrease precipitation, increase cirrus cloud cover, dissipate fog. And under that, it says deny visual satellite and high altitude reconnaissance, decrease light level for nighttime operations. Interesting. United States Air Force Phillips Lab, and increase cirrus cloud cover to deny visual satellite, kind of like how the Russians said, infrared defeating clouds. Kind of like what we talked about at the very beginning, that they were creating the ability to block SAR. Something aperture radar. Synthetic aperture radar. I'm having a brain fart here. It's about blocking satellites, dude. That's the common theme here. From whether it's electromagnetic, GPS jamming, radar jamming, with Russia's power invisible defenses and electromagnetic warfare, directed energy weapons, or just basically dumping chemicals in clouds to block out satellites. The Freedom of Information Act request says the exact same thing. Increase cirrus cloud cover right there. United States Navy also involved in the weather warfare in Vietnam. Same deal. Weather modification, non-lethal warfare proposal. FOIA right there. And finally, not finally. This is owning the weather in 2025. As many of you have heard of this, obviously. But did you know that in that owning the weather in 2025, obviously they talk about all of the same reasons: degrade enemy forces, enhance friendly forces, make it rain, deny rain, space weather, which is a whole nother category we're not talking about right now, fog and cloud removal, fog and cloud creation, increased concealment, back to that whole, blocking out spy satellites or, nighttime operations. This was in Owning the Weather 2025. And as you can see here, it says, this is technology roadmap, a systems development roadmap to weather modification in 2025. And what do they say on this chart? CBD, right here in the center, in case you can't see it, CBD, and that says star next to it. Down by the bottom, it says CBD, carbon black dust, star equals technologies to be developed by the Department of Defense. But, all of the, the naysayers will say, Air Force 2025 and Owning the Weather in 2025 was just a think piece. It was by the Army, the Air College. It doesn't mean anything, Jim. It doesn't mean anything. But it means something whenever the FOIAs and Owning the Weather all line up all at the same time. Test Technology Symposium 97, where Dr. Arnold A. Barnes Jr. from the United States Air Force Phillips Lab, the same people that the FOIA came from, discussed making Owning the Weather in 2025 a reality. And he also says, to hell with ENMOD. The United Nations Convention on the Prohibition of Military or Other Hostile Uses of Environmental Modification, which was set into effect October 1978, applies to only widespread, long-lasting, or severe environmental modifications. Local, non-permanent changes such as precipitation enhancement, hail suppression, not covered. They're fine. Since 1978, an official Air Force position has been that weather modification had little utility or military payoff as a weapon of war. The official Air Force position needs to be reevaluated in light of 19 years of scientific advances, in light of advanced weapon systems which are more environmentally sensitive to prepare against technological surprise. So Dr. Arnold A. Barnes Jr. says, from the Phillips Lab, screw ENMOD, we better get on this weather warfare thing and get it together quickly. And he goes on to discuss all that. So this is his actual PowerPoint presentation, and I took some screenshots from it. For those who are concerned that this is all hooey, you can actually download that as a PDF or the original PowerPoint file, which I locally mirrored, which originally came from dtc.army.mil. Links are right here. Original source. I didn't make this up. This is a whole ass thing. Not some half-ass talking today. So what did he say at this joint Army Air Force meeting? He said, we can do all the things from owning the weather in 2025, even put Air Force 2025 right here on it. You know, all the rain enhancement, making, you know, all the exact same things that were in owning the weather. You know, to hell with ENMOD. HARP, that's cool. We should be doing some space weather modification. Weather modification using carbon black. And this is straight from the horse's mouth. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where all the bullshit ends. You can't get any more clear than this. Increased precipitation. Muddy dirt roads decrease tractability. Flood fields and small rivers decrease troop comfort level. I mean, you know, like those guys in Vietnam who were up to their waist in water. Anybody watch Forrest Gump? Decrease tractability by snow or freezing rain when temperature conditions are right. Decrease precipitation. Dry out roads, fields for improved tractability. Deny fresh water to troops in semi-dry regions. Oh, you mean like Iran, who said that they don't have any rain because people are denying fresh water? It's right there in the slide, guys. You don't have to imagine your way through this one. And the chemtrail commando 100% smoking gun straight from the military, emitting it right in your face, increase cirrus cloud cover. Deny visual satellite or high altitude reconnaissance. Decrease light level for nighttime operations. This is the United States Air Force, Phillips Laboratory, admitting that they can either increase or decrease right here. Create/suppress contrail cirrus. They can either make cirrus clouds or they can get rid of them. Just like in 1958 with Dr. Florence Van Straten, all the way through to today. This says current capabilities. This paper was written in 1997. Targeted fog dispersal, local changes in rain, precipitation, could be snow, could be hail, precipitation. Cloud modification for surveillance/coverage. Hole boring creates suppressed cirrus contrails. Ionospheric modifications. Energy requirements too large for major storms. Treaty restrictions, new weapon systems push the envelope. The environment must be considered from the start and of the concept design for all new weapon systems. So that's about as clear as you can get on this. So I want you to imagine that basically the United States just launched this, new hypersonic missile. And they're at, let's say, Area 51. And they don't want anybody to see them, rolling the new hypersonic missile out onto the tarmac and loading it onto a B-52 bomber. So they create a cloud overhead, a big, series of clouds to make sure that nobody, the Chinese, the Russians, anybody can see them doing these tests. Or if they're in battle and they're rolling out a bunch of tanks to create even infrared defeating clouds so that the satellites can't track the movements of armor in the field. Or as they put it here, when he says decreased light level for nighttime operations, if you're in the Iraqi war and you're up against the Republican Guard and they've got all these T-80 tanks that they got from the Russians and they think that they're just so badass until night falls and it's already like a new moon, it's not like a full moon. The idea that they could take carbon black dust and create cirrus clouds to block out any remaining moonlight and make it pitch black dark gives you a tactical advantage because you have night vision and the enemy does not. The same would be true of, like, say, in Afghanistan with the Taliban. You know, the Taliban are hiding in caves and on mountainsides, and, you know, we have night vision. All these, you know, Afghani rednecks, they don't have night vision. So this is why they say that they will do it. That doesn't mean that is, you know, the only reason they do it, but that's two reasons given by the United States military that why they would create clouds using carbon black dust. And I think that pretty much seals the deal on that. But, you know, one for the road, operational defenses through weather control in 2030. We could create localized fog or stratus cloud formations, shielding critical assets against attack from energy-based weapons. That's right, people. Directed energy weapons in space. The military has talked about creating stratus cloud formations to defeat directed energy weapons and optically targeted attacks on United States assets. How about that one? So, though they may say there is no such thing as directed energy weapons in space, they sure are talking about defending against them using clouds that could block those lasers or microwaves. Another case where they talk about doing such shenanigans. Now, I did hop over to dtic.mil, which is the Defense Technical Information Center, and you know, before going live tonight, I was like, let's just see what's new. And while I was there, I saw this. I typed in carbon black cloud on, you know, dtic.mil, and I came up with 7,360 results. Greenland whiteout experiment, summer 1960, using things like carbon black. And, you know, I could start going through some of these papers because I actually got them up, you know, and I was looking at them. Theoretical considerations on the effectiveness of carbon seeding from the military. I think I've already proved my point, but, you know, if you want to do deeper dives on all this, there are plenty of papers out there. Chemical Defense Establishment portion down under UK. Corporate author. What the hell kind of name is that? Chemical Defense Establishment portion down under. Anyway. The use of absorbing smokes for the attenuation of infrared radiation. Infrared defeating clouds using carbon black dust. The list goes on, but there are plenty of stuff on here. Use of absorbing smokes for the attenuation of infrared. Feedbacks between climate and fire emissions. No, that's about black carbon, not carbon black. So some of these results are the flip-flop. They're talking about soot. But environmentally benign battlefield effects of black smoke generator using carbon black. So apparently the military really is a big fan of carbon black. Now, I want to throw some caveats in here. Am I saying that the military is only using carbon black? Hell no. Because even in cloud seeding in the last 2 years, in the United Arab Emirates Rainfall Enhancement Program, they have now started testing things like electrified water, cloud ionizers on on drones, on unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and they're even talking about using nanoparticles of graphene and silicon dioxide as cloud condensation nuclei. So cloud seeding with graphene nanoparticles and silicon dioxide. If this is happening in corporate America, funded by oil tycoons in the United Arab Emirates, then you have to know that the military has, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, there's a place called NASIC DACO, which is a member of the Weather Modification Association. The reason why they are is because any journal entries, any kind of peer-reviewed studies on weather modification at all done by scientists, corporate America, or else ends up at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and will be studied to be used as a weapon. The same is true of every single geoengineering research paper out there. In fact, let me see if I can pull this up really quick. Because I just talked to Kat and she had this on her channel and I'd kind of lost this. But the geoengineers, you know, while busy talking about saving the world from climate change by blocking out sunlight, you know, that whole solar radiation management idea with, you know, the talking heads like Ken Caldera and David Keith. Well, there's this guy, Ken Caldera, and on her channel, I found an oldie but goodie. If you haven't heard this one before, this may be your first time. Enjoy this jewel. Any second now.
I used to work at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, and I once participated in a meeting where we all sat around the room and thought about how could we manipulate geophysical systems to use it as a weapon. The meeting was about weaponizing geophysical interventions. That means, you know, could you somehow interfere in Earth functioning in a way that you could use it as a military weapon? Could you change climate? What could you do in terms of manipulating the sort of Earth's physical systems as a weapon? Well, you know, some of the ideas were okay. Maybe we could blow up hydrogen bombs, you know, underwater, offshore, and make a tidal wave that would go over a city. And you know, the result was, well, isn't it easier just to drop the hydrogen bombs on this?
What, dude, bro? Ken, stop. You're saying this in public. What you talk about at Lawrence Livermore stays at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. I mean, this is possibly the dumbest thing that he ever said in public.
City, you know, that there. Now you could imagine, though, say putting pathogens in a cloud, let the cloud, you know, go over somewhere and then would rain down on your enemy and create, you know, do chemical or germ warfare in this kind of way. And that might work against something that would say as big as the former Soviet Union, where, you know, you could be pretty sure that within a few days that cloud would rain out.
Bro, really? Like, bro, really? You know, this used to be on YouTube. I don't know that it is anymore. I'm gonna drop it in chat. Everybody go subscribe to Cat's channel over there, Mellow Cat on BitChute. But yeah, this is Ken Caldera, the geoengineer, and if you want to know more about him, you can just go to Geoengineering on ClimateViewer.com, and he's that guy, right? You know, who's that guy? He's that guy right there. That's the Ken Caldera we're talking about, okay? David Keith and Ken Caldera, the face of geoengineering, pretty much. Most people that, you know, if you don't know about these people, you need to know about these people, because as you look at these, you know, who's actually funding geoengineering, the National Science Foundation, largest funder of geoengineering studies. Over here, who's the largest, you know, people writing about it? Alan Robach, Ken Caldera, Ben Kravitz, up here, David Keith. This is like a scatter plot of, you know, who was the most prolific authors of geoengineering. Well, why am I saying any of this? What does it even matter? Here's another global network of solar geoengineering funding. The reason why it's important is because the CIA is very interested in geoengineering as a weather warfare technology. And I could get into all of that. The point I'm trying to make here is that any studies on weather modification or geoengineering no matter what they want to call it, will be looked at and evaluated for its potential as a weapon system. And that's why I think that, it's all a bad idea. All these people that claim that they're doing it for benevolent purposes, they're trying to save people's lives. They just want to make it rain, or they just want to cool down the planet. It will eventually be used as a weapon, one way, shape, or form. It has been in the past. It will be in the future. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And when it comes to this type of technology, if you study history and you look at the references, all the references are available in the details below this video. You can look at this yourself. Don't trust me. Trust your gut. Do your own research. But when you look at the history of all of this, it's the same thing over and over again. 1946, bunch of guys from General Electric's laboratory invent cloud seeding. Less than 11 months yet later, cloud seeding was used to attempt to steer a hurricane. It ended up changing directions and running into Georgia. Then it was used as a weapon in Vietnam. Okay? So you have to understand all that basically any one of these technologies, cloud seeding went from literally invention to steering hurricanes in 11 months to weapon system in less than 20 years. Geoengineering will be the same. All of this information is gobbled up by the military and industrial complex, and they will find a way to weaponize it. So, yes, carbon black has been a weapon of choice since 1958, when Dr. Florence Van Straten created the first clouds using carbon black dust. And I don't think that, things tend to change much when we see 2008, Dr. Mosh Alamaro from MIT University saying, hey, we can steer hurricanes with carbon black dust. It's a great idea. Same thing with, Dr. Arnold Bards, the FOIAs, owning the weather in 2025, 1997, him, giving a PowerPoint presentation on it. This story's been going on a very long time. And I do believe that carbon black dust is not going away anytime soon. And I believe that other things are also probably in the mix. But until those papers hit the internet and are available, we all kind of just have to sit back and scratch our head and wonder what's happening. Up in CT with the super chat, $20. Thanks for another great stream. Thank you so much, Up in CT, for your support. I really appreciate it. So yeah, guys, this is, there's a lot that we can speculate on. I can only show you what I can prove to be there.
Thanks for another great stream.
Thank you, YouTube, for taking so freaking long to send that alert to Streamlabs to finally make it on my screen. I'm sitting there, I could see it in chat, and then I'm waiting, almost a minute to, like a minute and a half before it pops up. And I'm like, is it going to pop up at all? Because them's the breaks. YouTube's been making it very hard. I used to have a picture-in-picture box where I could just, bring up the chat, but it works like 50% of the time. Oh, shit, it's actually working right now, which is actually crazy. Like, what did they do to it? Like, that's a mess. What is that? Like, you can't even read it. It's so small. Of course, right now, the chat is actually working. Ooh, don't call in. Bad boy. No calls. Because we're not taking calls. I'll be here all damn night. We should do another call-in show. But, yeah, apparently now it's actually working right now. Maybe I actually should start using the chat box again. I'll have to figure it out. Because I swear, I'll go and I'll rely on it and I'll bring it up. I even have like this, picture-in-picture, with the chat that I used to use all the time. That way I could just keep the chat on the screen. But it's like cutting off your guys' names and stuff. I don't know why it's doing that. It's just weird. No, that's not affecting any of it. I don't know. Maybe we'll see if we can keep that up again. But you never know. Because these things, I swear, about the time that I actually turn this thing on, it'll stop working again. I mean, that was like instant. I don't know. Maybe they fixed it. Maybe they did fix it. But like I said, that little, super chat like took forever to actually show up. So love you guys, mean it. I got another busy work week ahead of me. And, I'm not going to give away what next week's going to be about. We're going to try something different. I do want to have Buffett is a pedo. Thanks, Diana. Good Lord. And that's the other risk you run while having the chat up on the screen is you're going to have some of my friends like Diana just shooting out things like Warren Buffett's a pedo. Good Lord. Anyway, love you guys, mean it. Lots of information. It's not fully complete because, anything military, we're talking about top secret in most cases. So it's going to take years for us to find out what's going on today. But know that it is happening. It definitely is happening. There's no doubt in my mind that it is happening, that weather warfare and that the military is involved with it. The United States is involved with it. The Russians are involved with it. The Chinese are certainly involved with it. So if we do not know that, this sort of stuff is going on and try to do everything we can to keep digging to find those answers, we never will find out about it. But they've always got that, national security blanket, to hide behind. I mean, they're worse than my 7-year-old daughter with her whoopee. They just hold up their blanket. National security! You can't see me! And that's the way it's going to be. So, as much as when it comes to like directed energy weapons, anything like that, I can pretty much always find out information about it. But this is the closest guarded secret around because weather warfare has plausible deniability that goes with it. And that is the most important, clandestine secret war that you can do against your opponent. And then they can't even prove you did it. I mean, you just heard Ken Caldera talking about setting off nukes underwater to make tsunamis. Yeah, they can do that sort of stuff. And he's like, but I don't understand why they would do that when it's just as easy to drop the nuke on the city. If you drop a nuke on a city, everybody knows. If you set up a nuke underwater and a tsunami washes away, you can go, oh shit, earthquake. We didn't do that. We certainly didn't create a 9.0 earthquake off the coast of Japan that took out the Fukushima reactor and made, large parts of Japan desolate and, no one can ever live there again. Worldwide, radiation covered the whole Pacific Ocean and nuclear radiation. We would have nothing to do with that. And it had nothing to do with the Japanese accusing the United States of war crimes. No, none of that. But, that's all speculation. Right. So we will speculate when it comes to the military and that because that's all we can do. But at the same time, when, Hugo Chavez, Ahmadinejad, Brigadier General Golemani, I mean, when all of these people are saying repeatedly, hey, look, somebody's screwing with our weather. Somebody's making their earthquake machine to destroy our country. I wouldn't call them a conspiracy theorist based on the history. And now the history as well. So with information comes power. With power comes great responsibility. Please use that power to attack ideas, not people. And please, it is Christmas time. So if you can support the channel, I understand everybody's wallet, belts are tight and their wallets are thin. I know mine is. So yours probably is too. Even though I do live in the finest double wide trailer the Illuminati ever, funded, your support now would be greatly appreciated, and my family says thank you. Love you, mean it, guys. Check you out on the next one. If the video resonates with you, leave me a comment because I love hearing from y'all. First time here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell. Yeah! Remember, it would be impossible for me to do this without your support, so please join my Patreon or buy me a coffee on PayPal. And always, attack ideas, not people.